Live weekend breakfast with Phil Williams and Rachel Burden. It's 7:36 nearly. The British National Party are holding their annual party conference in Wigan this weekend. Five Live Breakfast has spoken to the leaders of all the parties during their conferences, so we can now talk to BNP leader Nick Griffin. Good morning.
Good morning.
Your last conference before a general election, it's an important one for you. What would represent a good result for the BNP in the upcoming general election?
New radical parties don't normally win seats in general elections. They win them in by-elections. We did very well in Glasgow, of course, the other night. But for us to win one seat would be a political thing, and it's doable.
Yeah, you lost your deposit, though, in Glasgow North East, didn't you? You only actually polled 4.92% of the votes.
Yeah, we pushed the Tory party right to the wire. We were 56 votes off beating the official opposition party in Britain. That would have been quite something.
On the economy, because that is obviously going to be one of the major issues coming up over the next 12 months and certainly coming up to the general election. One of your policies would be to ban most foreign goods and imports. How do you foresee that this would help us out of recession?
That's not really the policy to ban most foreign imports. It's to ban things which we should be making in this country, which are strategically essential to this country. So we shouldn't be importing things from China if in the event of war or something similar we wouldn't be able to get them, and which are really worthwhile industries. You know, we're quite happy importing widgets for beer cans from China, but serious heavy industry, serious industry generating power, for instance, things like that which the world will buy. That's what we want to get into, so to make Britain a world leader again and provide jobs for British workers.
But you'll acknowledge that
it's really common sense, isn't it?
But you'll acknowledge that we're a service-based economy, not a manufacturing economy these days. How would we produce all the goods that we need?
Well, unfortunately, yeah, indeed, we've been turned into a service-based economy. In other words, the Labour Party and Tories have deindustrialised Britain. It's a disaster. We need to get back into heavy industry. As one example, we're still, in research terms, the world leaders in deep wave power. Now, it's a far better technology than wind power, which is frankly junk. And if we were to develop that properly with a large amount of government investment, then the deep wave power machine that we could make would be sold around the world.
Any form of protectionism, history has taught us, does not work, though. And what would you say to, for example, businesses in this country whose export trade may be risked by such policies?
History hasn't taught us that protectionism is a disaster.
Well, the last time it happened here in the UK was in the 1930s, and it was devastating. It had a devastating impact on the economy.
Well, look at what's happened now. We've got a globalised economy, and it means that we've got 5 million people in this country of working age not working. That's a disaster. The globalists, they spent billions, trillions of pounds bailing out the banks instead of developing real industry which actually produces things worthwhile. We've still got economic shambles. That's the disaster.
And yet all the major successful economies in the world are based on a principle of free trade.
Most definitely not. China is the most successful economy in the world, and China is based very much on the basis that the Chinese government runs the Chinese economy in the interest of the Chinese people, and good luck to them. We should do the same.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's entirely true. I think the US is still the largest economy in the world, isn't it?
The United States is an economic basket case. It's got a huge turnover, it's got a huge population who guzzle very large amounts of consumer goods. But in terms of actually making profit, making money and reinvesting, it's China which is the world leader, not America.
On the issue of Afghanistan, because obviously this will also be a major talking point in an upcoming general election, you advocate withdrawal from Afghanistan. Not only that, you advocate withdrawal from NATO. How would that help Britain?
We advocate the withdrawal from Afghanistan immediately because we're involved in a war there which is wrong, which is unwinnable, and which is grotesquely unfair on the British people, seeing their lads brought home in boxes day after day after day for no good purpose. It's obviously in our interest to get out of that war, which is only making us a target for terrorists.
What about Britain's commitment to the international peacekeeping efforts there and also its commitment to NATO?
Well, we don't believe the British government has got a right to send especially ill-equipped young British troops into wars which haven't got anything to do with British interests. So if the international community wants to go and sort something out, that's up to them.
But is it not within British interest to remain part of NATO for the protection it brings and also for the fact that it is one of those forces which has provided some degree of peace and stability in the world over the last 50 years?
I think the peace and stability in the world for the last 50 years between the superpowers was maintained purely by the fact that both had nuclear bombs, so no one dared to start a war. Being in NATO means that our troops are at the beck and call of other people to involve in quarrels that have got nothing at all to do with Britain, and that's wrong.
One of the issues that you're facing today is, of course, a look at your constitution. There is going to be a vote on widening the membership of your constitution. Do you welcome the opportunity that you might invite a broader spectrum of members into your party?
Yes, I do. It's been something we've been debating for years, really, and moving towards that. We will ensure that the new constitution still makes sure that the party is there primarily to represent the interests of the indigenous people of these islands who've been grotesquely discriminated against by the other parties now for decades, but to have members of loyal, assimilated minorities in this country involved in the party as well, I'm sure will actually help.
So you would welcome, for example, a black British citizen, a black British Jew, a British Muslim into your party, would you?
Yeah, sure. Obviously, we have Jewish members and councillors already. We will welcome people into the party, I believe, who are committed to the interests of this country, people who come to Britain because they wanted to be in Britain and don't want to see it turned into something else.
Is it not true to say... Sorry. Is it not true to say that this has rather been enforced on you by the European Human Rights Commission, Equality and Human Rights Commission, I should say, sorry?
Yes, to an extent. They're spending vast amounts of taxpayers' money trying to do the British National Party down. The government's changing the law so that, although it's going to be most bizarre, you can be ethnically specific, you can have the Black Police Officers Association, the Muslim Lawyers Association, all those, but if you're a political party, just to get at the BNP, you can't be there for a specific ethnic group. So they're changing the law, and we'll comply with the law, but we will still be here primarily to ensure that the British people get a fair deal in Britain, and if there's members of ethnic minorities who want to help us do that, we'll be pleased to have them.
And you think they would be welcomed with open arms by every single member of your party?
They'll be welcome. Some of our members will be resentful at the fact that we've had forced on us by the government with taxpayers' money. We've had forced on us something which isn't forced on any other ethnic group in the country.
Well, you're talking about minority groups, aren't you? So the representation is slightly different. The issue is different. It
is indeed. As I say, I'm entirely happy that we're going to change to something which really suits the majority of people in the party, which is that we recognise there's three different groups of people in Britain, really. There's the native British, there's the civic British, the people who've come here because they wanted to be in Britain, who paid into our society, who adapted to our society, and they're welcome. And then there's the crooks and the colonists, the ones who want to change our country into something else. And they're not welcome, and they still won't be in the BNP.
I think there'll be a lot of people listening who wouldn't be entirely sure what category they would fit into there.
I think they would be. Everyone knows what a native Brit is, someone who's English, Scots, Irish and Welsh by descent. Everybody knows the kind of immigrant community who come here, settled, who are contributing to Britain, who pay their taxes and are loyal to Britain and like Britain and British values. And everybody knows the kind of people who wave placards saying, behead those who insult Islam and who abuse our troops coming back from Afghanistan. And everybody knows those people aren't welcome and shouldn't be here.
Nick Griffin, leader of the BNP.